Welcome to the Keeping the Nostalgia live show. You guys are either A, watching this on our YouTube channel, or B, listening to it on our podcast channel, which is keepingthenostalgialive.podbean.com. That's all one word, keepingthenostalgialive.podbean.com. If you're looking at the gentleman, our guest today, he has been on our keepingthenostalgialive.podbean.com podcast twice. I 1974 Fort Wayne Northrop Indiana high school basketball champion, single class, Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame member, Purdue Boilermaker grade, All-American, played in the NBA, and he has a book out, and it's called Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's True Story. And I know that Walter Jordan, who is our guest, wasn't born in Indiana, but he's a product of native of Perry, Alabama. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, you tried to get to Indiana as fast as you could.
Absolutely. Unbeknownst to me, 3 months old, we moved from Alabama to Detroit. And then I think I was 3 years old, we moved from Detroit to Fort Wayne, Indiana. So it's been a godsend, no question about it.
Man, look at the size of my hand compared to your hand. Look at the only reason I can grip a basketball is because of my damaged pinky. That's the only way I can grip that. Walter Jordan, thank you for joining us and spending some time talking about your book that we just mentioned. You can go to Amazon.com and get that book today. I guess I want to ask today, you have a great social media presence. I guess, do I call you Mr. Jordan? Can I call you Coach?
I've been called a lot worse, man. Anything you call me is fine. So Walter, whatever you're going to call me is fine. But first of all, thanks for having me, man. I always enjoy what you do. Of course, being a big Indiana basketball fan. And it's always good to have people that really know the game and give it the respect it deserves. And people need that. They need to understand the history of how great what Indiana high school basketball is all about. You do a great job of that, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. And, since I've been doing this, I have grown to appreciate the game of basketball. When you were a kid, you were pounded in your head, either you're a Hoosier fan or a Boilermaker fan, or Evansville Aces, Butler Bulldog,
Absolutely.
Notre Dame Fighting Irish. But I respect all basketball. And, it's just, you do have your rabid fans, as being a Purdue Boilermaker and going to Indiana University, but you're probably best friends with some of those players that you played against. And it's just a respect for the game of basketball as a whole.
So absolutely, not only respect, but genuinely love for each other. That's something that the fans don't see, that the crazy fans don't see. But just like in the NBA, any sports, the respect factor, because we understand how tough it is to be able to do what we were blessed able to do. That's a tough nut to crack. To play at IU, to play at Purdue University, and that's a tremendous accomplishment within itself. So we understand the numbers and the fact that we're from the state of Indiana. A lot of us, we go back a long ways from the Indiana All-Stars, the rivalries in high school, and just the blood, sweat, and tears that we all shared together along the journey. So yeah, some of those guys I consider my real close friends, even though we battled. And after, I would play those guys at midnight and on Tuesday. It doesn't matter. We love playing against each other, but after the game, there's a sincere love and respect that's there. No question about it.
It's interesting. There's the perception of what happens in life or in the game of basketball, and then there's the reality. And a lot of people, that's why I love having guests like you on the show, so that you can give us that reality check of what really is going on, what you're really trying to accomplish, and what you're trying to do.
Oh, absolutely. You look at you take Bob Knight and Gene Kay for instance. No more fierce competitors in the coaching fraternity in that rivalry than those two, right? But what do they do now? They're best friends. They're always together. They go fishing. They play golf together. And that, to me, that's what it's all about. And, just like competing against your sibling, you gotta go to sleep with him. You gotta wake up the next day, so you want to beat his butt. So the next morning, you wake up, hey, let's go again. But that's what makes it so neat, man. I love the rivalry. I think it's the best in college basketball, no question about it. The football programs are coming along, so it's good to have the football programs back now on the move and improving, where they're relevant now So it's going to be around for a long time, not, changing conferences and anything like that. I don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be a nice to watch this fall and see what happens in the next few years.
So Fort Wayne, tell us a little bit about Fort Wayne and when you got there. And if I'm not mistaken, also include, I don't think Northrop had been around that long for your basketball program to blossom like it did.
No, it's, I talk a lot about that in the book because I wanted to be a Central Tiger. I wanted to be a Central Tiger. All my brothers and sisters, I'm the seventh child. They had went to Central, and Central was a neighborhood school 3 blocks away from our home. We could walk there. I felt like I was a Central Tiger. I was destined to be a Central Tiger. I used to dream about playing for Central, wearing that Tiger uniform, and I knew every athlete that played sports in Central, whether they were cross country to tennis. I knew their names. I didn't know them, but I knew their names because I followed them that closely. I would go to football games and go to JV games when I was in middle school, just dreaming about being a Tiger because my brothers played for Central. So I just wanted to be a Central Tiger. But in '71, busing came along. And into my freshman year, at that point in time, middle school was from 7th grade to the 9th grade, not like it is now, 8th grade to, I guess, high school. But then my sophomore year, the first time Northern was open, the busing started in '71. We went to a place where we got bussed out past 4 or 5 different of the high schools to get to Northrop High School. And they didn't want us there and we didn't want to be there. It was one of those situations, and the racial tensions that I used to say all-time high, but I can't say it all-time high anymore. The racial tension was really tense. And I think about the first day of school when literally physical fights took place where chains and bats and sticks and people were thrown through the windows and cops was called. And it was like that for the first couple of weeks. So we didn't know how that was going to turn out. But thank God for sports, because sports started, football season started, and our athletic teams was very, very strong because the schools was all coming to Northrop to form Northrop High School. So we had great coaches, and we ended up being very, very successful. And one of our key athletes was Rick Magley. I don't know if you know that. And Rick Magley went on to IU, where he was a star cross country, big time, all Big Ten, all everything cross country and track guy. But he won a lot of races and won a lot of state championships. This is our first year, so that brought our teams together. We started supporting each other and got to know each other, and the student bodies fell in place, and we really became really close. By the time we were sophomores, something really special. I mean, juniors, something really special was happening with that school, and we became family. And my senior class was 80% white. So I thank God that my parents never allowed me to see color. We saw right and wrong. We saw how you treated people. And I knew that in my household, in Jordan's household, there was a fear factor. We weren't afraid of what's going to happen to us at school. We was afraid of what's going to happen to us at home if we didn't take care of what we needed to take care of at school. So that's what my parents, old school. So we had to answer to our parents because there was high expectations, no excuses going to take place. And we were going to treat people right. We were going to treat people right. That was just the way we were brought up. So when I got to Northrop and I saw the great athletes we had that was a year ahead of me, 2 years ahead of me, that saw how they participated, how they led, how they brought the team together, the school together, I wanted to be a part of that. So I wanted to, luckily my siblings, I was taught how to lead and how to compete. And I always wanted to win. And I was nothing special. I just wanted to win. I wanted to I fell in love with Northrop, and all I wanted to do at that point was to win. That was our goal. It's just to win. We didn't think about going to college or going into my junior year. My senior year, I had one scholarship offer. That was Edinburgh State University. Nobody knew who Walter Jordan was. So a lot of magic started to happen. And my mom passed a week before my first game my senior year. And that was the toughest thing at that time in my life I ever experienced. And a week before our first game, we played our arch rivals, Fort Wayne Northside. That was a team that everybody projected to be everything. That a lot of senior, a lot of talent, and we weren't projected to do anything. We lost 9 lettermen. We only had 3 senior three returning lettermen coming back my senior year. And we was 24-3 my junior year. We lost to Anderson in the semi-state. Roy Taylor, Tony Marshall, and that crew was undefeated, and we lost to those guys. So they beat us pretty bad in the game before the state finals. So no one expected us to do anything. But we, as a team, we started to grow and started to believe. We beat Marion, which was unheard of my senior year, like middle of the season. That's when we started to believe that, hey, we probably can do something pretty special.
You know, you touched it off at the beginning. I'm glad that I sent my children to a public school. And I tell you why is that I think if I would have been sent to I think going to a public school teaches you a social skill and teaches you how to interact and get along with everybody. I know that sounds too simple, but it was for me. I went to Broad Ripple High School. My high school basketball coach was Black. Everybody on the team was Black. So, and I became a part of the basketball program. And I just think, and once I went to Indiana State University, the first day we were downstairs, we were getting ready to go books, and you randomly picked your roommate. And I had someone from a country school that didn't have any other races in their school. So they were scared of these people who were approaching me, but went to my high school and were my friends. So going to a public school and having to socialize, I think, is important at a young age. I don't know if I just went on a tangent, but I love that I went to a public school.
Billy, that needed to be said, because that's the problem we're facing today. It's just not knowing. It's the ignorance part and the fear factor that's simply not there. A lot of people perceive us to be a certain way, and we're simply not that way. And like I tell my kids all the time, don't believe the hype. You're not that person. You're better than that. And we're all the same. And we're all in the same boat. And people are starting to realize that today, more than ever. If they're not, you're blind or you're crazy. Because we have to come together. And I think that's why I thank God for people who've been around sports like you have and like I have, because most of the time, if you've been involved in public school and you've been around sports, you know that what people are all about. And you judge people for the right reasons. You don't judge people based on their skin color, their belief, or anything like that. So I agree with you 110%. So I mean, one of my greatest awards that I have in my life, and I don't even keep trophies or awards around the house because I'm always looking for the next goal, next challenge. But when I was my senior classmates voted me the best male citizen. And people say, what's the greatest award you got in high school? Yeah, that was my number one award, because that meant more to me than anything. And still today, I would say 85% of my close friends that we were close to 50 years later, we're still like family. We tell each other we love each other, and they come from all nationalities. There's no isms, all political beliefs, but we know we love each other. We know we understand each other, and that to me is priceless. It's priceless.
What was it like, or did you know that you were going to be playing in Assembly Hall again with the Purdue Boilermakers against Indiana Hoosiers? But what was it like to play in Assembly Hall for the state championship?
It was amazing. It was a big part of my vision that helped me really want to go after it, because my two brothers, and Charles and Willie, and my sister Loretta, they were at Indiana University when I was in high school. That's where they went to college. So between my sophomore and junior years, I spent 3 or 4 weeks on the campus at IU, because I would go down there to work out with them, and they would take me to the hybrid building, and they would leave me there. They would drop me off there because they know I was good. I would take a snack. I was there playing basketball all day. They'll come back after class, 3 or 4 o'clock. They'll come back after class and they'll play with me. So the time I left 9 o'clock or so in the morning. The time I got back for those 3 weeks, all I do is play basketball. I go back, it's 4 o'clock in the evening, because I've been at Hyper Building all day with a snack playing against college kids. So they knew I was fine. I was the best. I was in my dream world. So I was a huge IU fan. People don't realize that. George McGinnis, I love George McGinnis. I loved him when he was at Washington. I mean, Steve Downing, Wayne Pack, all those guys, Spider, all those guys, Louis Day, all those guys was names to me that I had grew up watching. I thought Washington was the best high school team I've ever seen. So when George McGinnis, and I got to meet George, like Steve Dowling, all those guys at Indiana, I was in heaven. So everybody assumed that I wouldn't at that time even think about trying to go to Indiana University. So that was far out of, out of my reach. I was like, but I had grown to be 6'5", and I had gotten so much better that because of the experience. And then I found out the last day I was in Bloomington, heading home for my senior year, I found out that the state championship game was going to be at Assembly Hall. Okay. And it was going to be on March 23rd. And that date was etched in stone in my head and my heart. And I told my brothers, I said, we're going to be right back here playing for the state championship, March 23rd, 1974. Get out of here. My brothers had a way of motivating me, and not agreeing, like, nobody's heard of Northrop. Who the hell's Northrop? But I had this vision. I started dreaming, and I started speaking to Mike Muff, who's a hell of a player, all state, all 13th leading scorer at Murray State when we graduated. Tom Madden, who's my little point guard, who's tough as hell. So we started talking about going to state, going to be in the Assembly Hall. So I was extra motivated because I wanted to be in front of my brothers, my siblings, playing for the state championship. And so that was we all started to buy into it, and we beat Marion midway through the season. We lost one game to South Bend Adams. South Bend Adams, a really pretty good team, ranked like number 1 and 2 in the state. And we lost to them on the road. That was the only loss. And I remember crying on the bus because we got beat. And Mike Muff says, hey, we're not going to lose again. And 28 games later, we didn't lose again. And we were playing in front of Assembly Hall. And to play us in front of Assembly Hall and 17,000 people. Little old us, Northrop High School, 3 years old, Walter who, that kind of thing, playing against who I thought was the best player in the state at the time in 74, and people look at me like I'm crazy, but to me, it was Wayne Walls. Wayne was an incredible high school player, and watching him play in the afternoon game against Franklin, I usually go in the locker room at halftime, but I watched him the first quarter, and he was so good, I had to leave at the end of the first quarter, because I said, if we win this game, the second game, I would probably have to guard him, and he was in my head. He was getting in my head. That's how good he was. So I remember that like yesterday, and just the thrill of playing at Assembly Hall. We were so focused, we didn't realize that the media section and the front row was full of college coaches and the best, and all the media around the country. We didn't realize in there that's after the game. Thank God, after the tournament, thank God, because we were just so focused and just trying to win. We had just beat number 1 Anderson in the semi-state. No one said we could beat them. So we were coming down to Bloomington knowing that we had to beat the number 2 and number 3 ranked team, Lafayette Jeff and Jeffersonville. So we had to beat 1, 2, and 3 to win the state. So our attitude, we already beat number 1. So we feel pretty good that we had a good chance to win this thing.
Do you still remember when the scoreboard hit, no time left, Fort Wayne Northrop Bruins, Walter Jordan is a state champion. Did it go by really quickly? Do you have like a slow-mo memory of that, or do you flash back to it on a very occasional?
It was so slow motion. I mean, it seemed like it was like you see it because it's hard to believe. But my mom, her spirit, she was my angel. And the reason why I know that things happened the way they did, because I had a secret sauce, and she was my angel. She was with me the whole year. Everything that happened to me is was a blur, because my mama's prayers, I was living on her prayers, and she got me through things. And sometimes things would happen to me, and I said, did that just happen? My mom. And I got older, I started to understand that, how powerful that connection was in her prayers and me, and still to this day. I'm 17 years old, and my life completely did a 360 less than a week after my mom passed. I wasn't supposed to play that first game, but the first game I hit 2 free throws to help win the game. And I'm not a good free throw shooter at the time. I only 2 free throws, 1 second on the clock, you know. But when you feel that spirit, great things start to happen. And that, to me, I credited all that to my mom and my angel, my secret sauce. I just feel that to this day, and she just had me on this road. And I had to later on learn how to pray for my own, but her prayers got me through so much, and I contribute a lot of things happen in my life to my mom, her spirit, and my angel.
You know, a big word today too is selfishness, and it does not sound like that word was a part of your mom's vocabulary.
Well, that was not allowed when you have 7 boys and 3 sisters, and we had to be a team. And I always said one of my favorite phrases is teamwork always works. And that's just how I feel about everything that I do, whether it's personal, business. You know, I just believe in teamwork. I believe if the country understood the importance, first of all, of leadership. The world's not void of good people. The world's void of good leaders. And so when you have the attitude and you get humble and you surrender yourself and know it's not about you, because everything is really God's anyway. It's not really ours. We get caught up on that stuff, you know, because he can take that stuff like that. It's his. He can do what he wants to do with it. So a lot of people don't understand that. And I just thank God that he humbled me. So I had to get that. And I wasn't like that at first. Trust me, I was selfish. I've been there, done that. I was an imperfect human being. I talk a lot about that in my book. People get tired of hearing people talk about how great they are. And they're lying about this. Kids don't want to know that. Kids want to know 3 things. Kids only want to know, do you care about them? Can you help them get better? Can you help them get where they want to go? That's all kids want to know about. So if we keep that attitude in everything that we do, we're going to be blessed, because that's what God wants us to be able to do.
You know, it's interesting, and my wife doesn't watch my show or listen to my show, but she has taught me one thing, and that's a phrase. It's not all about you.
I love it. Absolutely.
And
that short phrase, powerful.
It is. So we are talking about your book, Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's True Story. And we are with Walter Jordan. And previously to starting our interview, I talked about this card here, and it is the 4 of clubs. I knew it was a club, man. I knew it was a club. But I did find it. But, you know, Purdue Boilermaker, how does that choice come about?
Well, you know, it was amazing what happened in that 4-week period. Like I said, I had one solid offer heading to the state tournament. And that was because a friend of mine, Jay Webb, who saw me early in my junior year, and he went to Edinburgh State in Pennsylvania, and he knew the coach out there. So he said, hey, I'm driving up to Edinburgh. I want you to come ride with me. So I went and rode up, because I had 2 Fort Wayne guys that I looked up to was playing there. So I'm thinking, you know, D2, you know, I'm not thinking anything. So we're still focused on winning the tournament. So that's our focus. We're not focused on anything else, you know. So 4-week period, I played lights out. I kept getting better. Every game I got better. Every game our team got better. Every game we got closer. Every game, it was inch by inch. We knew we had to get out of the city, because the city was very, very strong. I mean, it's like any city, like Indianapolis, you got to get out of the sectional. You know, a lot of great teams who probably have potential to win states in Indianapolis never get a chance to do it, because they get beat by their arch rivals, right? And so everybody wants to beat the king, right? So everybody wanted to beat the city champs, Northrop. So everybody wanted to beat it. So we knew we had to get out of the sectionals. So once we got out of the sectionals, before we had sectional 1 and sectional 2, you might remember that, and my guy, Hilliard Gates. So Hilliard was a big part of my vision, because I've seen Hilliard Gates interview all my heroes, from Dave Shepard to Javon Price to Wilkerson. When they come through Fort Wayne Semi-State, and they got interviewed by Hilliard Gates. So my goal was, I want to get interviewed by Hilliard Gates. So in order to do that, I knew we had to win, because he's not interviewing losers, right? So that was part of my dream. Like I loved Hilliard Gates. Hilliard Gates broadcast, and I'm watching. I don't care if he's broadcasting Indiana, who he broadcasts, I'm watching. So and I thank God Hilliard, God rest his soul, he and I became friends later on in life. But so we won sectionals, and I played well. Then I started to really get confidence, and my confidence started to grow because we were intense now. We was trying to focus on winning. Got to regional, had a real tough battle against a great player named Yoder. You probably know that name, Gary Yoder, who was just incredible. I mean, I saw him score 40 points in the first game. We had a guy to come back and try to guard him the next day, you know. But those kind of guys, and then so we won. Then we played Logansport with the Lozier boys. We played them in the first game in semi-state, and we ended up beating them by a point. Mike Muffar, I think, was 1-2, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it, the best player on our team. He had gotten in foul trouble, didn't play much at all, and we ended up sneaking by them. There you go, you got to win that 1 or 2 close games, right? And we ended up beating them, and I think one of the Logan boys went to Michigan. So then we played Anderson, and no one expected us to beat Anderson again. They was undefeated, and Taylor, Mr. Basketball, Marshall. I mean, no one expected us. They came back there just blow us out the year before. So we beat them. So in the four-week period, people start to see me play. If we've gotten beaten in the sectionals, I'll be sitting at home with that one scholarship offer. So in a 4-week period, now all of a sudden, I wouldn't have been All-State. I wouldn't have been first team All-State in front of Larry Bird. I wouldn't have been, Indiana All-Star. Come on now. No one had heard of Northrop. No one had heard of me in 4 weeks. And so go from there to playing in Bloomington, like you said, 17,000 people. Everybody's watching because there's an awful lot of talent out there. I mean, there's some players out here, right? And so I ended up coming back, and I remember we won the state. We had the parade on Monday. The mayor called off school for the entire city. Nobody went to school that day. It was because he called out city for all public schools, so no one went to school. So on Tuesday, I come back to school, and I get called out of my homeroom. And literally, there was a box of letters, handwritten letters, about this big, that the AD had, that was shipped overnight, and they're from coaches. I broke down and just cried. I could not believe that they were offering me. And then later on that day, Bob Dunawall comes in from Bloomington to see me. I get called out of my classroom. Hey, somebody need to see you. Come to the office. So I go to the office. Bob Dunawall to see me. And then about an hour later, Johnny Orr from Michigan comes. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? so all of a sudden, I had offers, and I had to take a visit. My first visit was to Michigan. I'd never been on a plane before in my life, but they sent this little twin-engine plane and picked me up and drove me and flew me to Ann Arbor, and I loved it. Campy Russell, who I've watched, and Joe Johnson, they were my hosts, and I was like dreaming. Like, oh my God, what's going on? But just to have offers like that, and then I knew my choices down to Michigan Marquette, Michigan State, IU, and Purdue. Purdue was the last on my list, to be honest with you. But Eugene Parker, God rest his soul. But Eugene Parker is somebody that I respected so much and loved so much. I didn't really know him as well because we were the same class. We competed against each other. But the way he carried himself, who he was, how he competed, he was the best player in the city of Fort Wayne. And he didn't make the Indiana All-Star team, but he was clearly top 5 players in the state of Indiana. Eugene was incredible for Wake and Cordy. But like we said, if he never got out of the sectionals, he didn't go to public school. He went to the Lutheran school, but he had a great career. He was an unbelievable player. So he never got the honors around the state of Indiana. Yet still, he was Purdue's #1 recruit, and he was Tulane's #1 recruit. Those are his two final choices. And so he called me up and said, "Hey, Walt, I'm going to go down to Purdue, man, after one of our awards banquets, city awards banquets." He said, "Hey, why don't you ride with me?" I said, "Sure, I'll ride. We had nothing else to do, you know." So I rode down with him, and he drove, and we just talked and talked and talked and talked. And I really understood then why I respected him so much. And then a week later, he called me up and said, "Man, I'm committed to Purdue." He said, "It'll be neat, man, if you come with me." And so that's basically why I ended up going to Purdue.
And we lost Eugene. Is it going on 4 years? Has it been
Yes.
that long?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So you could almost, I mean, we are talking about your book, Gracefully Broken, and I'll ask Walter a little bit later if there's another place we can get it besides going to Amazon.com. But you could almost write a sequel or a prequel called 4 Weeks.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I hadn't thought about that, but that's about exactly what happened. You know, the old adage they say, you know, Billy, they said it took me 30 years to become an overnight success. You know, that's what you made me think of when you said that.
And you know, what is it? I have somebody that says, you know, it just takes one thing.
Absolutely.
One thing to create an effect. And if you follow it and you listen to the guy up above, you know. But let's get back to the book, though. Gracefully Broken. Where does that? I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but when does that pop in your head? When are you like, you know what, I'm going to write a book? You know, and what were the reasons? And did you keep a diary? Did you keep a notes all through your life, or was this something that was, you know, just in your mind? Or how difficult was it when you decided to do it? I know it's several questions within one big question.
And they're all very important questions you just asked. I mean, you know, in this climate that we're in today, you know, lying is as common as waking up. Everybody wants to lie. Everybody has their own vision of stuff that's not true. And so when you're trying to reach goals in your life, and you know, Billy, there's always, I say, takers, and there's givers, there's haters, and there's lovers, right? So you hear stories about yourself, being from Fort Wayne and being a big fish in a small town, being 6'8", where you couldn't hide, very involved in my community. It's very involved in my community with youth and community activists and, you know, public eye and that kind of thing. You hear your share of lies about yourself. And then you always want to be able to tell your own story, you know, and then you want people to know that you're imperfect, that you have flaws. You know, everybody say, well, you Walter Jordan and this and that, and they don't realize I hurt, and I failed, and I'm a sinner, and that God's forgiven me. And I want my kids to know the truth. I want my kids, if something happened to me tomorrow, I want my grandkids to know who the Jordans were, who his grandparents were, what they stood for. And I wanted to hear from us, from me, not from anybody else. So I decided that I need to write a book about my life, and as my wife would say, be totally transparent about everything. And therefore the book got started. It's funny how God works, because he keep put the people in my life to, when things happen, he keep putting these amazing people in my life, the team always work, to help me reach my goals. And this was no different. I sought out some people that I respected, I know cared about me, who would be honest with me and be transparent about the goal the journey I was ready to take. But the bottom line was, I had to tell my story, even some stuff that was a surprise some of my relatives and some of my siblings and some of my children, because I want them to know the truth. And I think that's so important. What we don't do is tell the truth, because I don't want my kids to say, well, Walter Jordan was a great basketball player and he was perfect. But that was not the case. That I fell down too. You're going to fall down too, but you can get up. You can get right back up. This is what you're made of. This is who you are. and God forgives you. If God forgives you, who gives a damn what anybody else does? So when I started writing the book, I prayed a lot. I mean, I would go forward, I would rewind. I prayed. I would cry some days. I would just, Lord, do I need to say this? Lord, help me say this. So for the first two chapters, it took me about the longest time to write those too than the others, because I had a title, but it just didn't set right with me. It didn't feel right with me. I don't know why, but I kept coming up with different titles. But I knew the title was very important. I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to say something about my life, so people can say, "Wow, what is that about?" So I called my sister. She's brilliant. She's a year older than me. Her name is Loretta, IU grad, first lady, in the ministry. I mean, she knows me better than anybody. She's a year older than me, and she was that one person in my life where she was so brilliant that I would always somehow get her teachers, which wasn't good. Teachers she had, I would get. And so the first day of class, I would come in and they say, "You Loretta's brother?" I said, "I am, but I am not Loretta. So don't expect that to happen with me." So, but she was that person. So I call her up and I say, "Hey, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to send you first couple chapters. Tell me what to think. This is where I want to go with it." I told her where I want to go with it. And she said, "Boy, you don't have to," because she's a national speech champion in high school. She writes, she speaks, she's awesome. I mean, she's one of the best motivational speakers. So I call her, and she says, I don't have to read your first two chapters. She says, "I already know the title of the book." I said, "You do?" Now, mind you, Billy, when I was going through some major struggles in my life, she wrote me poems. One of them is called Push. That's touched my heart to this day. When I was hurt and I couldn't walk, and she wrote this. She made this poem just for me. The other one that was called Giant, and said that I was a giant in every sense of the word. It had nothing to do with my height. But she did things when I was going through tough times in my life. She's always been there for me, right? So she said, "I got the title of the book." Here I'm taking 2 months trying to figure out the title of the book, right? And she says, "Hold on." She said, "The title of your book is Gracefully Broken." I dropped the phone. I literally dropped the phone. It was a wrap. It was like, wow. And that's how God has worked. And guess what? He gave me a flow to my book that I was able to write and write and write and write. Where before, for 2 months, I was struggling like I had no direction. Simply because she said, "This is the title of that book, and this is where you need to go." God wants you to tell your story, and He wants you to be transparent.
I had a broadcaster on last week, and I asked him a question like, "What happens when you're broadcasting and you start thinking of something else? How do you focus back on your job?" And I just did that right there. You really threw me a curveball by talking about truth and transparency. What doesn't go back to gracefully broken if you're just telling the truth and being transparent about everything in your life?
Wow. I just know this, Billy. I know this. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life, to be transparent and just to tell it all. And even with the women in my life, and having a strong wife who's just a godsend my whole life.
35 years?
She is my third wife, believe it or not, but we've been together 20 years.
20, and it was just the other day, wasn't it? A couple.
Yeah. 20 years we've been together, and my whole life changed but the problem wasn't the women I've dated. The problem was me. The problem was me. And that's part of the things I talk about in the book. I want my kids to know. I want my kids to know it was me. And as a man, and that's tough to put out there like that. But it's been so therapeutic for me that I can't even explain the peace that I now have, the calm I now have. So when someone says something about, "Well, Walter Jordan this and Walter Jordan did that," read the book. Don't ask anybody else. It's all there. And I tell you, to have peace and this is not talking about anybody but my family, and their response has been overwhelming. My nieces and nephews, we have a clan. It's a lot of us, but their love and respect and overwhelming support has been unbelievable. Not only them, but people around the country. I mean, here we are, just maybe 6 weeks, whatever the release date was, and we've sold 3,000 books, and we haven't done any marketing, and we haven't done any book signs or anything. I'm overwhelmed. Already exceeded more than what I even thought the book would do. But my brother said it best. He said, "Well, you surrendered, and God wrote the book." And that, to me, is such a blessing, because I just know what I feel right now, what I got out of it, as far as me just being just therapeutic and just feeling the way I feel. It's worth it. It's worth it. Whatever else happens after that, it's all good.
You know, it's interesting once somebody does release a book, you kind of like, what's it about? What angle is going on there? Let me read the description carefully. I got a message from Coach Kirby Overman, and it's like he read the book in a day and was just, and his wife even commented that he was just so intrigued and so intense and just loved it. And you played for Kirby on the 1974 All-Star game, correct?
That is correct. I love Coach Overman. I love his wife. I mean, you meet people in your life and they just touch your life before you even really know them, and then you get to know them, and then we've been in touch off and on over the years. It just blesses you. I think about my coach Bob Dilly and how close they were. And it just does your heart good. I know that I pray for him and his wife all the time. When he hit me up and texted me that his wife texted me that they had read the book and had a picture of him reading the book, I literally teared up. And because it's special people in your life, and he believed in me. I mean, I'm an Indiana All-Star where 2 months earlier, I didn't think I would be mentioned to be an all-state player. And then not only am I an Indiana All-Star, he believes in me. I'm starting against Indiana and Kentucky, against Jack Gibbons and James Lee and Higgins, all these guys. Here I'm starting. Then I'm in, Kentucky All-American Derby Festival game. I mean, this is crazy. I'm like, what the hell? But thank God, when your coach has confidence in you, you just play better. You feel better. The coach had confidence in me the second day of practice. He said you're special. I mean, how many guys at 17 would like to have that from the guy you playing against all these guys you read about, followed for 3 years? These guys I've been reading about for 3 or 4, they didn't know who I was. Second day of practice, I'm out here and there's Larry Bird, there's Roy Taylor, there's Tony Marshall, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Mitchell from Albany, all these guys I read about, Wayne Walls, and here I am. And he says, you're special. Come on, man. I mean, that doesn't get no better than that. I can't help but love that guy.
We know that Coach Overman gets a hard time because of, and I think it's more of Larry Bird's attitude toward playing basketball and wanting to be the best and play all the time. But do you have any Larry Bird stories from your All-Star practice, or even?
I have a couple. But I only one I think I can just safely tell you. But I love Larry Bird. I mean, I have nothing but love and respect for that guy. I love his story. People talk about the IU thing where he left and went work on a garbage truck, and his mom, Gloria. And I remember the story. I remember the struggles he was having personally at that time too, because we were all together. And so, but people don't realize that I remember we were sitting by the pool, and we were in Southport, I think, at the Holiday Inn. That's where we stayed. The All-Stars, Indiana All-Stars. We stayed in Southport. And we were talking, and we joke around and say, hey, man, And Larry says, I'm going to throw Coach in the pool. And I'm like, you're going to do what? You're like, yeah, right. You're going to throw Coach in the pool. So guess what happens? You know what happened, Larry? Larry Bird being Larry Bird. He throws him in the pool. So we're laughing, thinking it's fun, but coach didn't think it was funny. Now, I don't know if he remembers that, but I'm sure that might have something to do with him not starting and not playing much. Yeah, so people don't tell that story much, but that's the way I remember it. And so I'm not sure I would have played much either, but he was Larry was a tremendous competitor. He turned out all right, so there's no reason for him to be bitter anymore. But he gave us a lot of laugh. But that was just Larry's personality. I was also blessed to play with Larry on the World University Games team with Denny Crum coach. So I knew Larry when we were younger a lot better. Now he's way above my pay grade, but he turned out all right. So he has absolutely no reason to be bitter, I'm sure.
Talk about professional basketball a little bit. What were your expectations coming out of being a Boilermaker at Purdue in the Big Ten? What fantasy did you have about the NBA? How did you go into it? How did you keep level-headed? What did it teach you?
I absolutely had no fantasy about it. People said, "What do you mean?" Well, on my mom's deathbed, one of the last words I ever heard her say when she was talking to my dad, she said, "That boy gonna be a pro." That's the first time I ever thought about trying to play in the NBA. And I would remember that as I got to be better. In the next 3 or 4 years at Purdue, things start to happen. I started to play and get some notoriety. And having a chance, being 6'8", I grew 3 inches now. So I was 6'8". I thought, well, I had a chance to play. Back then, the NBA wasn't paying any money. This before Magic and Bird got to the league. They weren't paying any money. But I love to play basketball. I mean, I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to play against the best. I've always liked to play against the best players. And you had a name, I wanted to play against you. And I just kept getting better, and I figured I had a chance to go play. I was projected to be a end of the first round pick. It didn't happen for a lot of reasons. I talk about in the book. But I ended up going to camp, New Jersey. At the time, I don't know if you remember, Billy. Excuse me. But at the time, the NBA had changed the rosters. It went from 12 men to 11 men, right? The ABA had folded. So all these jobs were now gone, right? This is the perfect time for me to come out of school, right? So I got to the Nets. I played the entire exhibition season, had a great exhibition season. Third leading scorer on the team, Bernard King, Super John Williamson. I didn't have a guaranteed contract because of my draft position. Everybody else on the team did. So the team was having financial problems, the Nets, right? So they couldn't afford to cut me and pay somebody else. This was what I was told a day before our first game. And our first game was going to be in Detroit, playing against the Pistons. And my family from Fort Wayne was all packed up, ready to come to Fort Wayne. I get cut that morning. So I have to call them and say, hold up, don't come. And I had a meeting with the coach, and he told me point blank that you should be on this team, but we can't afford to keep you and such and such. So that's what happened. So I went out and played in the WBA, which was a Western Basketball Association, 1 year. All the great coaches, my Musselman, to Wessel, who played for Coach of Portland, Hubie Brown, all those guys was coaching in this league on the West Coast. So I went to the state of Washington, Tri-Cities, and I played out there for a year. Made an all-league, one of the lead scorers in the league. Was ready to get called up when I woke up and came down with something called writer's syndrome overnight, where I couldn't walk out of nowhere. The last game of our season, and I got a call that's going to sign me to a guaranteed contract. And I had to tell them the next day. I prayed, hope it would heal the next overnight. But something called writer's syndrome, where both my knees and my ankles had swollen up twice the size, a rare disease that affected me for 6 months. So I couldn't sign that contract. I had to call them the next day. They was ready to make a flight arrangements for me to let them know I wasn't going to make it. I couldn't make it. told him, "Well, I don't know what's going on," because they hadn't been diagnosed yet. And so that's what happened for a year. I was completely unable to walk for about 6 or 7 months. And then the good Lord gave me strength. I got stronger than ever. And then Bill Musselman, who recruited me out of high school, who coached against me in Minnesota. So he knew me from high school and from college. And he called me up, and I thank God I was healthy at this point in time. He said, "Hey, tomorrow I'm going to be named the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I want you to come play for me in the LA Summer Pro League." He said, "You deserve to belong to be in the NBA." He said that to me. He knew me, and I knew him. So I went out and played for him. With him, Bill Lambier and I, and a couple other kids, Bruce Flowers, and a couple other guys that you guys might know from Indiana and Notre Dame. We all went to play for Bill Musselman at the Summer Pro League. That's when I signed guarantee contract.
All of that leading back to being gracefully broken, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
And I'm assuming you talk in depth about that in the book. I had no clue about that, and I've spent 2.5 hours with you. Very interesting stuff.
Well, absolutely. People, like I said, people don't know the story. People want to tell you the story. There's a reason why these things happen. They just, I've never been told that you couldn't play. Watch, you can't play. You're really good, and I broke my foot. And I broke my foot my rookie year, and I came back my second year. I broke my foot again, another foot. So you broke it, but God had different plans. He had different plans for me. He wanted me to find my purpose, and he used that to help me grow. But a lot of people they don't know the story. They make up stories. They lie. They tell you all this stuff that's not true. And I just decided that I got tired of people talking about telling my story. If I'm tired of them telling it, I need to tell it. So gracefully broken.
Yeah, man, you're focusing. I feel like someone's telling me something with all this truth and transparency thing that you're supposed to do about your life. My wife is my third, so I call my book 3 times a charm. But before we go any farther, I still think that it's a neat. They're neat colors. They were a neat uniform. But did you slide any of those Cleveland Cavalier uniforms? Did you save any? And why in the world do I think of Granville Waiters, God rest his soul, because when I hear the Cleveland Cavaliers, but did you keep any memorabilia from your NBA days?
I love it. I have a uniform, a jersey. They happened to be in the Fort Wayne African American History Museum. I gave it to them. They asked for it for a uniform, so I gave them. I got a couple pictures. I got a picture of me. They did marketing. I think I got them around here somewhere. I got about 100 pictures of face shots with my Cleveland uniform. They gave me for marketing purposes. So I have that. That's kind of neat. So I always like those crazy looking uniforms, man, for some reason. Other than probably the fact that they won the few teams that paid me, so I keep I claim them.
We are talking with Walter Jordan, who has a book out. You can go to Amazon and get Amazon.com. It's called Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's True Story. Walter, I know you already feel punched in the gut by talking about Eugene Parker. You also lost a child. Am I correct with that?
That is correct. That's correct. Jamarcus was born my sophomore year in college, and my high school sweetheart, and he was my best friend. He was an amazing, gifted, talented, loving, God-fearing human being. He 28 years old when he passed away. He passed away of cancer. He suffered for 3.5 years. He was living in New York, chasing his dreams. He was into the drama, acting, dancing, all the things I wish I could do, playing instruments, singing, he could do. But he was amazing. I mean, just loved people, didn't see color, loved Christ, loved his family. Would call me sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning, my birthday, just to make sure he was the first one to tell me that he loved me. I miss those calls. But he was amazing. I was visiting him in Columbia Presbyterian Hospital when he was living in New York. And the first thing he would ask me, said, Dad, how you doing?
While you take a second there, it's the big questions, and Gracefully Broken just sounds like, there's just so much more to the story. And I apologize for slapping that question in, but there's why also. There's like, why did my mom die when she was 24? Why am I still 54 and still alive? Why did I go through cancer and survive? Why didn't your son survive? Why? It's almost, we can almost, 4 weeks, Gracefully Broken, and why? And it's it's difficult to ponder and difficult to take. I apologize for
No, don't apologize. And I apologize for getting emotional, but it's still, it just never goes away. But you're 110% right. They talk about that in the book, how I lost faith and how I played the victim, I played the fool.
yeah.
And how that happens, you ask why, But my son, he I never forget the call. He said, Dad, I need you to come see me. I said, okay. So what's going on? He said, I'm ready to go. I said, what do you mean ready to go? He said, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go see my granddad. I'm ready to go see my grandma. He said, I'm ready to go home. He said, you need to come see me. So I'm gathering my strength to go visit my son because I know he was ready to go. And he told me that he had written out his entire homegoing service. He had written out what he wanted me to wear, his favorite suit on me, and the tie he wanted me to wear. He taught me so much about living while he was dying. And I can't repay him enough for getting me on track to living. And I contribute a lot of my mindset, my life to my son. It should be the complete opposite. But I am so thankful that I got to spend those 28 years with him and wish I had spent more time with him while he was here.
This is probably the most I've thought, or the most I've actually, guys, you just got to get the book. You just got to get the book to read it. Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's true story. You can get it at Amazon.com. I know I've kept Walter long, but Coach Jordan, where else can they get the book besides Amazon?
Thanks for asking that, Billy. They can also get it at Barnes and Nobles. Real quick, we'll be doing a book signings in Indiana tour. We got a couple of dates set up in Indy. A good friend of mine, Jeffrey Stratton, one of my high school classmates, a pastor there in Indianapolis, former police officer. He's spearheading the efforts. I know we're doing one in Carmel. I can get the information and get it to you, Billy. And we're doing one in West Lafayette, and then of course Fort Wayne. We're doing a couple of them in Fort Wayne. So that's coming up. I want to say September 22nd in Indianapolis, so 2 different locations. I know a couple television stations going to be interviewing me there, that kind of thing for that day. So I'll be on the run all that day, and I'll certainly hope all my friends and family members and friends and people, foes, and some of my former teammates and rivals, if they're around, I hope they come out. I'd just like to see them. They don't have to buy the book. I just want to give them a hug and just tell them that I love them and to see them while I got a chance to see them while I'm there.
And we'll put all of that in the link where you can get the book. upcoming dates and stuff like that to see Walter. I'm assuming that on these book tours that you'll be autographing the book also.
Absolutely. And yeah, hopefully they'll go online and bring the books with them. We'll have a few there, but I'm hoping that most of them will go online and purchase them or go to one of the stores and purchase them.
You know, I normally will get off the phone and or get off of an interview and be so excited and pumped in talking about the actual game of basketball, but today's interview has touched me a little bit differently. And please, people, go and check out Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's true story by Walter Jordan. Very interesting. Also, this is just a small rant. When someone writes a book, if you believe in that person and you want that person to write another book, buy the first book. Don't call them up and go, hey, how's that book going? Or don't, but hey, you need to send me that book. Look, man,
Thank you.
I wrote the book for several reasons. Come see me and I'll sign one. Go on Amazon.com and buy one. But Walter Jordan, I'm sorry I slapped you around a couple times with some questions about people we've lost, but life. But
Billy, you are flat out awesome, man. You're class act. And the title of my next book, if I write, is gonna be 4 weeks.
I love that. I love that. And I'm just thinking that it may be, it may have to do another, it may be a 2-volume.
I love it.
Walter Jordan, thanks for joining us. And I will put everything into the bottom links about getting Walter's book, Gracefully Broken, a Hall of Famer's true story. Walter Jordan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir. You're class act. Thanks, Billy.